Welcome to day 3 of SOC 122 Introduction to Sociology. I am Dr. Maryam. Today we are discussing social stratification and their foundations and theories. Let's start with the basics. Stratification is just a fancy way of saying layering. Think of a layer cake. Some people are born into top rich layer with lots of frosting, wealth, power, respect. Most are born into the middle or bottom layers. The key is that this isn't random. It's a structure system that shape your entire life from your health to your education to your job. The textbook opens with a family in Ethiopia versus a typical US family. That's stratification on a global scale. Think of these on a spectrum from close to open. Slavery and caste are totally close. You are born into your position and you die in it. The state system is slightly less rigid. A commoner could become a knight, but it was super rare. The class system is the most open because you can theoretically earn your way up. But remember, open doesn't mean perfectly fair. Your starting point still matters enormously. Also note, every single one of these systems favors men. So that means gender inequality across all systems. So, according to the textbook, we have four systems. Slavery, some people owns other based on the death, crime, or war. Caste system, birth is determining the lifelong status. For example, India's Dalit, the untouchables. State system is the feudal Europe. This system is dividing people into three groups. Nobility, they are the one owning the land. Clergy, they own the church power. Commoner or serfs, they work the land. The last one is the class system, which is the most open one, and it is based on the money, material possessions, which allow the social mobility, means people can move up or down. Karl Marx is defining the class in one dimension. Marx is like the OG of conflict theory. He says, forget all the small stuff. The only question that matters is, do you own the factory or do you work in it? If you work in it, the owner is taking your labor, turning into profit, and keeping most of it for themselves. That's exploitation. The only way out is for workers to wake up. That is called class consciousness. When the worker realize they are being exploited and unite to revolt the system and overthrow the system. False consciousness is when a worker with $200 in savings think of themselves as an investor. Marx would say that's just a trick the rich people play on the poor. Means the worker mistakenly think they are temporary the capitalist. For example, I will be rich someday. So Marx is basically dividing the whole society into two, the capitalist or versus the workers. Then comes the Max Weber. He is defining the society in three dimensions. Weber says Marx was too simple. Think of a college professor. They might not be rich, means they are not owning the property, but they have some prestige in the community. Think of a mid level manager at a big corporation. They don't own the company, but they have the power over workers. Think of an Olympic gold medalist, not powerful or necessarily wealthy, but tons of prestige. Weber says your class is the combination of where you stand on all three of these dimensions. This is the model we will use for the rest of the course. So, Mark is defining the society by three characteristics: property means wealth, power, and prestige. He says they are interconnected to keep the social status of an individual in the society. Then comes the functionalist view. This is a classic big picture functionalist argue. Davis and Moore in 1945. These are the two philosophers which explain the functionalist view. They are not saying it's fair, they are saying it's necessary. The stratification in the society, the layering in the society is necessary. A society that pays brain surgeons the same as janitors would collapse because no one would go through 12 years of medical school and training. The promise of high rewards motivates people to compete for tough job. Look at the Tumin critique. Tumin basically pokes hole in the it must be functional argument. Think about it. If stratification worked purely on merit, Bill Gates' kids would start from zero. They don't. They start on third base. Also, Tumin makes the brilliant point about garbage collector versus surgeons. We have no neutral way to measure the importance. So the whole functionalist argument rests on shaky ground. So you need to focus on three things in Tumin's critique. One, he says the importance which the society gives to the individual is very subjective. We don't have any way to measure that. The second thing he argues, then in society there is no true merit. The third one, which he argue, is the layering system, the stratification system is dysfunction. Because of this stratification system, how many brilliant people are born in slums, drop out, and never contribute to their full potential? Just because they never get a chance to compete, to come to that system where they can compete with others. So that's why he says stratification is dysfunctional. According to conflict perspective, stratification exists because of the conflict over scarce resources. Every society needs leadership. Leaders will use their position to grab greater rewards for themselves. So there is another great philosopher, Mosca, which explained the elite dominance, that the society cannot run without leaders, but when the leaders are out there, they will first grab higher rewards for themselves. Then comes the Marx ideology in the conflicts perspective. He says the elite use ideology, belief that justify the current arrangement to keep the masses quiet. Either it would be a religion, either it would be the American dream kind ideology. So the ideology is kept through media, through religion, and then comes the Linsky. So Linsky is a peacemaker. He says, don't fight for small, simple societies with no extra stuff. Yes, people share and reward important jobs, but as soon as there is a surplus, extra food, extra wealth, powerful groups will grab it and use it to stay powerful. That's when stratification becomes rigid and unfair. Some societies, or most societies we study have surpluses, so the conflict view is more useful for understanding modern inequality. No surplus, like hunter gatherers, functionalist view holds. You reward important role. With surplus, like farming, industrial, conflict view takes over. Groups fight for control of surplus and the winners dominate. How do elites maintain stratification? Elites want this stratification system or layering system uh, to be in the society. This is really important slide for understanding power. Raw force, police, tanks, these are expensive. These cause people dying or death. So ideology is cheap and effective if you convince a poor person that poverty is God's will, or that they will be rich in the next life, or that the rich just deserve it because they work harder, then the poor person will never rebel. That's the genius of ideology. So ideology is get people to believe the system is right, right? So the caste system comes in, the work ethic is not right. That's why they are poor. Like that kind of ideology. So the elite one maintain this layering system through ideology, and that ideology is controlled either through information, withholding, spinning, or blocking information. For example, they would say, oh, it's a national security. That's why we are censoring it, censoring social media. That's a national security. That's why we are monitoring social media. The second one is the technology surveillance, drones, facial recognition, encrypted chat apps. So, according to them, it is just to catch criminals. Ironically, but this is what they use to surveil the citizens. So here, if you see, they are using the power without actually using the physical force. They control the thinking of individuals rather than controlling their bodies. Let's summarize the whole presentation here on this slide. So the first philosopher is the Karl Marx. So Karl Marx is explaining the society in one dimension, black and white. Either there is a capitalist and either there is a worker class. Capitalist owns all the means, lands, factories, while the worker class work in it. So this is how he explained the whole society. Then comes the Max Weber. So the Weber is explaining the society in three dimensions. He says if someone is an upper class or a middle class or a lower class, it is according to these three characteristics: power, prestige, and property, which is basically the wealth. Then comes the Davis and Moore. They have a functionalist view of the stratification system. This is this layering is important. They are not saying it is fair or it is good or it is bad. They are just saying that the whole society is interdependent. This layering system is interdependent. Then comes the Tumin critique. Tumin says, you says the surgeons are more important than garbage collector. Which measure you use to give the importance to the surgeon but not to the janitor or the garbage collector? So basically, he argued that the importance is subjective. Then the second point he argued, he says there is no true merit. Why? Because when the rich person or a poor person coming for one type of test, we say this testing system is to create a merit, but the whole workup behind that rich kid and that poor kid is different. So he says no true merit exists. The third thing he argued that this whole stratification system is dysfunctional because majority of the time the one living in the bottom level never get a chance to compete. So basically, this is the waste of talent. So that's why he says stratification is dysfunctional. So these are the philosophers which explained the stratification system in different views. So with that, we will end this presentation. Next time, we zoom out to look at global stratification. This presentation was about social stratification. So, in global stratification, how nations are layered, how colonialism is created on today's map, and the role of multinational corporations. So, this will be discussed in our next presentation. Thank you for listening. See you on the next presentation.